Good morning, Delaware. Yes, we made it to Friday yet again. It's going to be another great weekend. Maybe not weather-wise so much, but we'll find a way to carry through. You'll notice today that as soon as she starts talking, it is not Nicole Falls who is co-hosting the show. It is the Deputy Director of the Delaware County District Library, Molly Meyers-LaBadie. Welcome, Molly.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're...
And you know you're going to get some local, lore before I'm gone.
And those applause were coming from our audience today. Gage Shell is on the board. Thank you, Gage.
You're welcome.
Glad to have you with us. And so let's see. Nicole's not here. It's allergy season. And,
yes.
So to do radio, you sort of have to have a voice.
Yes, and she does
doesn't
not.
right now.
No.
So I hope you're listening, Nicole, and I hope you and the Kitty-Lees are feeling better.
Feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So anyway, Molly, how you doing?
I'm doing great today.
And I teased on the Breakfast Club that you're going to talk about a book about the Mansfield Correctional Institution.
Oh, I am.
And I know that's one of the most interesting. I mean, now that the Ohio Penn is actually gone,
yes,
it's the Arena District now. The Mansfield Penn has to be the most historic correctional institution in the state, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so talk about it. What you got there?
I brought my book for the day, which is The Haunted History of the Ohio State Reformatory by Sherry Brake, and it's part of the Haunted America series. Mm-hmm. As many of you know, I like to go to do the odd, the weird, the strange things, and I have two friends who I'm going to call by name because I know they're listening, Sarah Kofer and Ann Pahacek, who talked me and my husband and a few other people, including Sarah's husband, Tim, for his birthday, to do an overnight haunted ghost hunt in the Mansfield prison.
So you voluntarily stayed in prison?
In February.
With
no heating.
With no heat.
It was February or March, but there was no heat.
Oh, God.
It was freezing, which I have to suggest if you're going for a ghost hunt, and we were a mix of people who maybe kind of believed in ghosts and people who believed that your friends were insane and you could have a really good time and scare each other no matter what. Sarah Kofer, I give a shout out to your husband, Tim Bird, on that one. And when I went there, I'm interested in the idea of ghosts because I love history. Mm-hmm. And you can't have a ghost without finding a story that goes with them. So before I left there, I got this haunted history of the Ohio State Reformatory. And it's really interesting. It wasn't what I expected because the beginning of it is literally sort of the history of Mansfield, some of the murders and the interesting characters who lived there. There's a nice history of Union soldiers in there and things like that. Then they get into how ghost hunting works, talked about, the people who were regular ghost hunters there. And then they got into some of the stories of the prison.
Okay.
My favorite one is towards the end, and I was waiting for it because I remember it. So the interesting thing about this prison, which looks like a castle, like you go there and your breath is taken, it's beautiful. In there, the warden and his family lived in the front part of the castle. Actually, they also had a minister that lived there, and they had the assistant warden who lived there. But there were, for a long time, families there, including two young boys who lived with their mother. One of the ghosts is Mrs. Gatlick, which I'm probably saying wrong, but Helen... she lived there for about 10 years before one day she went into the closet to get jewelry out, I believe to go to church. And when she opened the locker and pulled her jewelry out, her husband's gun fell. It shot because when it hit the ground and it shot her through the lungs. Oh. She then died of pneumonia in the hospital a few days later. And one of the big ghost stories that happens is when you're walking through there, many people smell rose. Because she would bathe in rose water, or they weren't sure if it was rose petals regularly. So walking through, you can smell that, and you can feel people sometimes touching you. And her son has gone back several times, which is really great for the prison history because he can tell you where they played. They played hide and seek. They had trustees who would babysit them. The trusted ones would babysit. Their meals were brought in. There were social events in Mansfield. The warden was considered a social position.
Wow.
So, they often hosted parties. They had,
I don't believe the story about the gun, though. I think somebody shot her.
Well.
Could be.
That one is not, trust me, there are enough stories of being shanked and being pushed over the railing, which if you've ever been there and you're walking on that railing, you feel like you're going to fall over.
Okay.
It is an amazing place to go if you ever get a chance. Daytime tours, they do the Shawshank tour, which is phenomenal as well. We went back and did that later, and you can see the sign Brooks is here, which is not the original one because it was stolen, but then it got returned, so it's in the museum.
Okay.
They have a replica of old Sparky there. They talk about all of this in the book. It's really a fantastic read. So I suggest for anyone, if you're thinking about going and just want to know the history, this will give you the full history of Mansfield. One of my next reads is the same series, which is The Haunted History of Delaware, Ohio.
Ah, cool.
So maybe next time I'm in, I'll tell you about here.
When I first moved to Ohio back in the 80s, people told me that Mansfield was sort of the center of organized crime activity in the state because of its location and because of sort of, let's say, lax policing.
There's some interesting stories about what went on. They don't get into that into the book, so I'm not going to be your expert on that one. But they do get into sort of, it's got some interesting characters that have just been around, hermits and crazy eccentrics, and some really good stories. They go all the way back to the Native American days as well, where some pretty awful things happened. I mean, it is history, and they don't hide from it or try to sugarcoat it.
Don't they also have a beautiful garden there?
Gorgeous.
Yeah, because I think when I first moved to Ohio, our directors of medium-sized libraries group had a dinner at that place.
Oh, yes. They have a beautiful room. Many weddings happen in that prison.
Okay. All right. So, good. Okay, so it's the name of the book again, and then the authors?
Is The Haunted History of the Ohio State Reformatory, and the author of this one is Sherry Brake.
Okay, great. So, this week I read a novel almost accidentally. I was in our Orange Branch library, and I saw on the new book rack the title, Broken Man on a Halifax Pier. And that happens to be a line from a song I love. It's called Barrett's Privateers. It was written by a folk singer named Stan Rogers, who's a Canadian folk singer, wrote a lot of songs about the East Coast, the Maritimes of Canada. And this is about Canadian pirates who attack U.S. ships after the American Revolution. Ooh. You know, there was kind of what brought on the War of 1812 was the raids on American shipping. And this was about a pirate who had been kind of shanghaied on, no, well, not shanghaied, he volunteered, but it was not what he thought it was going to be. And of course, it didn't end well. And the chorus of the song is, "Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers." So I thought, oh, wow, cool. Maybe this is about Stan Rogers, or maybe it's about the privateers. So I picked it up without reading the stuff on the
Good
cover
job.
or anything.
I often don't.
Took it home. The song's mentioned in one paragraph of the book. It has nothing to do with Stan Rogers whatsoever. It is set in Halifax and in the Maritimes, but it's kind of the way that the two lead characters in the book kind of meet cute is over this song. So he's a reporter named Charles Howard. He's just lost his job when his newspaper folds. It goes out of business. He's lost his life savings by being scammed by a neighbor, and so he's got nothing. He is the broken man on the Halifax Pier. And as he's standing there thinking about what he's going to do with the rest of his life, a woman comes up to him and starts talking to him. And she's in pretty much the same state he is. She's a former actress. She has a lot of dark secrets. She decides she's going to buy him breakfast, and they're going to talk. And that's how they get together. And they quote that Stan Rogers song to each other, and then they never mention it again. But anyway, so they're both these broken people on the Halifax Pier, and then the novel follows their budding romance through a thicket of complications and unlikely coincidences. I mean, there's some things in there you just go, oh, come on.
See, I'm a believer. I'd be like, wow.
You don't disappear from a city for 30 years and then suddenly discover you have a son there.
Why not?
Anyway, and so it's a fast read. This characters, the two lead characters are pretty interesting. The rest of the figures, the rest of the characters in the book are basically stick figures. This guy that wrote this is an author named Leslie Choice. He's a Canadian who's written over 100 books.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's not like 127 years old. He's.
Are you sure it's not just James Patterson with a new name?
That could be. Yeah, David Baldacci, somebody like that. Yeah. He writes fiction. He writes nonfiction for adults. He writes books for kids and young adults. He's a professor at Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia. He's also a surfer, and he's won all sorts of awards in surfing.
Wow.
He does winter surfing in Canada's Maritimes. You got to be at least a little bit of a masochist to do surfing in the cold Atlantic water. Anyway, so he also runs his own publishing house, and he had a show on Canadian television that did over 300 episodes on literature.
Really?
So, yeah. So anyway, this is not a bad vacation read. It's nothing particularly challenging or controversial. And it has kind of a nice ending. It has a very life-affirming ending.
Sometimes that's all I need. You can take me anywhere you want in the book, but take me somewhere positive when it ends.
Yeah.
I know when I'm ready I can handle the hard books, but there are just days. I just need to win.
Yeah.
And that's my book just needs to let me win.
Well, this one will let you win.
Excellent.
It's got a nice ending. Things come together nicely. There is some tragedy in the book, but it does work out pretty well at the end. We have a number of books by this author, which really surprised me because I had never heard of him. And the name on the cover is Lesley, Lesley. I didn't realize it was a male writer as opposed to a female writer. So anyway, it should be a fun read. And if you're interested in, like I said, pretty much a light romance, like I said, life-affirming book, it'd make a good beach read, a good vacation read if you still got some of that coming up. So again, it's called Broken Man on a Halifax Pier. I've had it out for a little while. I keep getting overdue notices on this one. Fortunately, there's no holds on it, so I will return it today. So if you're interested, it will be back in the library this week. So we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things we're working on for students and parents who are dealing with halftime school and how they can help support their kids. This will also help for teachers who are going back. And we've got a lot of stuff going on. We're only going to sort of scratch the surface. We will have Kelly Cochran on, our youth services manager, later probably later in August or early September, because we're doing a lot of work on this. We'll talk more about it after the break, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Off the Shelf. I was just thinking about the whole thing about the where we're going with this kid stuff, and I was thinking my mom was a teacher, but she didn't teach me like as a formal teacher. I don't know how she would have done that, and I'm really concerned for parents right now who are going through this. So
my sisters are definitely right in that not formal teachers still have full-time jobs and just trying to figure out what they can do that's right for each of their individual kids. And
my dad, he worked out of the house every day, but if he had to stay home and teach us, his main way of teaching us was through corporal punishment. So I mean, this was not have been his thing. So what we're trying to do, we've always had great resources at the library to help kids learn. What we've done, though, is we've had them sort of atomized. They're spread out across the collection. They're not in one kind of easy-to-use way. So one of the things we're working on right now is looking at how we can tie our resources together and do a better job of getting them into the hands of parents, caregivers, students, so that they can actually do things. And
this is a whole library process to do it, because we have our experts who know adult materials, our experts who know children's materials, and our circulation experts who know how to get that material where you can find it really easily and keep that up.
Exactly. And so what we're trying to do is pull all these resources together into easy-to-use modules almost, so that parents and teachers and students can find the things that they need. And this is not going to be all things that the library owns or that we that we've actually subscribed to, but we are going to pull together things like resources from homeschooling websites and things like that to make it possible for parents to find the things that they need. Yeah,
I mean, if you haven't done math in a while, a couple of years ago, I tried to help my niece when she was in the 4th grade with her math. And I'm like, okay, I can handle 4th grade math. I knew the answer, but I had no idea how to show her how to get to it with the way they do math now. I was really lucky at the time I went to the library and somebody showed me a math dictionary.
Ooh.
And if I hadn't had that, I mean, there were tears and they weren't hers.
No, I was not. I would if I'd had to help my granddaughter who's going into 5th grade. 5th grade, that's right. Yeah, middle school. And forget it. I look at her math and it might as well be written in Aramaic. I mean, I don't get it at all.
Teachers get a lot of respect because they're really teaching how the numbers work, is my understanding of the new format. It's not just getting the answer, but sort of the breakdown of it. But it's just different to me.
Right.
And many parents.
And one of the things we're going to have to focus on is the fact that homeschooling and distance learning are not the same thing.
Completely different.
Yeah, because with homeschooling, parents are the teachers. They don't really expect to have assistance from the school district. They don't want assistance from the school district. They want to do it on their own.
They create their own syllabuses. They don't get a syllabus,
Or they might get a syllabus from a group that's specifically a homeschooling
that
organization.
they found that meets their family's needs, that matches their family's values, that goes into what they're looking for.
With virtual learning and distance learning, parents are basically co-teaching with teachers, and they do that through the school district. And that's what we're going to see the Delaware schools, the Olentangy, Buckeye Valley, Columbus working on because of this kind of blended hybrid education process they're going to be going through this fall. So what we're trying to do is, first, we've got to learn the basics ourselves.
Yes.
We're not teachers.
No.
We do have a lot of parents on staff, some of whom have kids in the various school districts. We've got parents who have kids in school districts, including, of course, Delaware and Olentangy and Buckeye, but also Westerville, Worthington, Columbus City.
Yeah.
So it's a number of different school districts. So we're going to have to learn these basics ourselves. We're also going to have to be really well aware of what the school district's plans are. And right now we sort of have a handle on that. There was just a Delaware City Schools board meeting on Monday.
Many of our staff were listening to that.
I'm sure they were. And I have friends on the school board, and I know what a difficult decision and how hard these folks are working on trying to get it right. And so we're trying to keep ourselves educated, and we do realize things are going to change. I mean,
and they're going to change quickly. It's sort of like when the color on the map changes for the library, everything seems to change really, really quickly, and it disrupts all of us and kids and parents. That's going to hit multiple ways, and the teachers and.
That's right. And so what we're going to try to do is be as flexible as we can to keep helping with this sort of thing within the same boundaries. I mean, we can't just open up the library to have 20 kids sit in the library to work on school things, because we'd be completely undermining what they're trying to do by not having 20 kids in a school class together. So we're having to do these things in a virtual way and to be able to extend them as well as we can.
And we're trying to really make sure we're meeting those different needs that are throughout the system. Every family is a different need. Maybe yours is Wi-Fi, or you need help knowing how to use the computer to help your child use the computer. We realize there are going to be a lot of different ways that your family may be affected, that other families may have a different struggle. Right.
So what we're going to be doing is, we've pulled up the school district plans from Delaware, Buckeye Valley, Olentangy, the Career Center, which we don't want to forget too. Delaware Christian. Scott Teedy, who is on our board, is also the responsible for Delaware Christian schools. We got St. Mary's, the Catholic school that's right across the street from the library. So what we're trying to do is make sure that they know what we have, the same way we're trying to find out what they have, so the teachers and parents can use those resources in the most effective way possible.
Absolutely. And that we have the same resources that they're giving to parents when we can, so that we can help walk people through it after hours, because the school is there to support their parents, but they have to go home sometimes. And there are some times that we're here, or a grandparent that's trying to figure it out.
Right.
We're going to be there for you when the schools have different hours or different opportunities.
So what we're going to do is we're pushing out our current databases. And we have some really good ones, really helpful, really useful, that can be used for a variety of classes. We've got a number of databases from a company called EBSCO.
Love EBSCO.
Now, again, we talked a little bit about this last week with Nicole, that teachers sometimes get really leery about kids doing research on the web. These are resources that are not like you Google, say, coronavirus, and you get everything, whether it's vetted or not vetted, or whether it's somebody sitting in their basement coming up with crazy theories that I can't come up with a theory that's crazy enough that hasn't already been put out there, so I'm not going to even try. But these are things that are well vetted, well researched, peer reviewed, that sort of information. So EBSCO's
they're magazines
databases,
and newspapers. They're actually just digital versions, often, of magazine, newspaper, or reference book resources.
Right. So they're the same kind of things you would have gotten in a paper resource 30 years ago, when you as a parent or grandparent may have been in school 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. They're just digital equivalents, and they're a lot easier to use and a lot faster to get to.
And we pay for them so that the families don't have to.
Exactly. They're paid for through your property tax and the other resources that we get. So we've got, like I mentioned, EBSCO. We've got Newsbank, which for current events, for social studies, for geography, for all of those things. brings in information from a huge variety of newspapers, from the most conservative to the most liberal. It doesn't play favorites.
No.
It shoots it right down the middle so
And
that you
right
can
in with that,
rely on it.
we also have opposing viewpoints, which is a wonderful one because they give you both sides or multiple sides of all the topics you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So you can read every single side and be able to see the differences that are happening in a lot of those different articles.
That's right. And that kind of comparative information allows people to make up their own minds and to feel like they're getting the full story. They're not getting it slanted one way or another. One of the things we should think about too is we have great resources for streaming video for example, Canopy, which you might think of as being just for like feature films, but they have a vast number of good, solid documentaries.
Yes,
that are well researched and again can provide great information in a video format that you probably wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. So that's a really useful resource as well.
and for visual learners, it can really make an impact when you've got something a little more like that.
Exactly.
Hoopla does that quite a bit too.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we have EBSCO databases. We are upgrading our magazine resources, although that won't start until the first of the year, to have many more magazine titles available online.
Many more.
We're going to go from like less than 100 to over 1,000 magazines that are available because they've changed the company that actually manages this, and they've actually made it a lot easier and a lot more a lot less expensive, a lot more cost effective. Right, exactly. So we'll be continuing to grow in those areas to provide as much as we can. So I know you've got some resources there you want to mention, and I don't want to be in your way there.
I just jump in. One of the ones I love to mention too is culturegrams. When you're looking at different countries and cultures, it really will break things down. One of my favorite things is I'd go in and look at the monetary equivalents that it even goes into. It talks about what life is like. It's based towards like elementary school children. So it'll compare, what a fifth grader in the U.S. is experiencing versus a fifth grader in, let's say, the U.K. or Zimbabwe or somewhere like that, along with all those facts you need for your report. It kind of brings that whole country into perspective. And when you start studying countries and things, we're losing out on some of those reports we give to each other at times. And so this is going to be a really fun way to get together and compare your own world to another.
One thing I want to make really clear is the library buildings are open, and we do still have print collections that are useful here. We have a ton of workbooks, that you can photocopy pages out of.
Please photocopy the pages.
Yeah, please don't write in the books. We'll help you get the photocopying done. But all sorts of workbooks on everything from cursive to math to STEM things to geography, all sorts of different types of workbooks that we can do. And of course, we have large collections of materials in all sorts of nonfiction areas, as well as supplementary reading. So, for example,
we're even getting some flashcards into the collection. So those are being processed, but we're hoping to have those to be able to circulate so you can practice, whatever you're needing to practice that way.
Right. So, like I said, we're putting a lot of resources into this. I will ask you, if you are a parent or a teacher who needs something, contact us.
Yes.
Send it to askus@delawarelibrary.org. That's a great basic email. It comes into our information services department.
Yes.
Reference department. They will be able to get it to the people who are doing the selection in whatever area. So again, that's askus, one word, ASKUS, @delawarelibrary.org. The more information we get from you as parents and teachers, the more appropriate and the more effective our collection can be.
And that goes with your reading too. If you are calling in and you need help finding the right book for your student, tell us some things. What did they just successfully read? Is there a book they've struggled with recently? What is your family concerned that you want material in that book? The more details you tell us, the more perfect we get your book. Also, feedback when we give you a book, what you liked or didn't like, if it was the best book ever, or we could do better next time, because it will change. We get really good. The more you communicate with us, the better we get at that.
Precisely. So, like I said, we will go into the more detail on this in shows in the future as we develop these resources. Kelly's already on alert that she's going to be on the show to talk about this soon, and I'm sure we'll bring in other of our youth services and adult services librarians who can help do this. So we just want to make sure that we've got what you need so that we can help support you during this kind of crazy time. I want to say one thing. We are not trying to take the place of the school libraries in any way, shape, or form, because they're vital to the success in academia. But when the schools are closed, or they're only online, or it's not your week to be there, we can help support you with many of the resources that we can help you.
We've always been here to back up the schools.
Right.
That's, they do such a fantastic job that we're here for any of those little areas that they need just a little support. Or you as parents, outside those hours or outside those experience, want a little bit more, that's what we're here for.
I just want to, again, wrap it up by saying, please let us know what works for you. We will try to work with you as parents and teachers to get you the materials you need. We are doing a few programs this week. This is the time when we would have ordinarily been between the end of the summer reading club and the beginning of the school year. So right now we're not doing as many programs, but we do have a couple of things coming up. We have a virtual Heartful meditation program just to help you learn to relax with guided meditation. That's going to be Monday at 7 o'clock. Again, the programs I'm talking about are all online or available through our web pages. We also have a virtual book chat coming up, and we're going to have both an afternoon and an evening meeting to talk about the book Searching for Sylvie Lee. That's going to be on Thursday at 1 o'clock and at 7 o'clock. That's Thursday the 20th. And so hope you'll be able to participate in one or the other of those. We also have a board meeting coming up, which will be on our Facebook page at Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Get to meet our new board trustee,
yes.
Bradley Allen from Lewis Center. We actually got a chance to meet and talk with Brad Wednesday. Had a really nice conversation with him.
Whatever day of the week it is.
I know, they all run together, right? So anyway, Molly, it was great having you on the show.
Always fun to be back.
Gage, always a pleasure working with you.
Absolutely.
I want to again thank the Friends of the Library for their support. I also have a Friends of the Library meeting with their executive committee at lunchtime today.
Always a good time.
Looking forward to talking to you guys later today. So thank you very much for listening, and we will see you in the stacks.